Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today we're very pleased to be joined by Jim Jacoby. He is the CIO for Walter P. Moore and also the director for Walter P. Moore Technology, WPM Technology, which we're here to talk about today. A suite of services to the AEC industry focused on cybersecurity, IT services, and more. And I wanted to talk to Jim about how it came about and what services the WPM Technology is really focused on offering its clients. So, Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here.
So, big issue, cybersecurity, IT, information is just increasingly important with the AEC industry. How did WPM Technology, I mean, first off, let's just do a little kind of overview of Walter P. Moore in general, because a full-service AEC firm, and then, of course, WPM Technology, that started out in 2017. Give us a little background on that.
Yeah. So we founded WPM Technology in 2017, and really with the emphasis on exporting the competence we had built in IT over the years, 25 years, working for Walter P. Moore, which is a global engineering services firm. So we've had lots of opportunity to experience IT infrastructure and issues that AEC companies deal with, because that's how we grew up. So in 2017, we decided to create a wholly owned subsidiary, which is Walter P. Moore Technology, and start offering services focusing on AEC customers, because that's our experience base. And so it's been running for about 7 years. We've got lots of good customers and different services. And one of the things I always tell our potential customers is that we really strive to become a trusted partner with a client company. And one of the things we have to do is strictly adhere to non-disclosure agreement, because since we are providing technology services to some firms who may cross paths with Walter P. Moore from time to time, it's critically important that none of the information that we may learn during an assessment or managed service or other goes across the line. So we take that very seriously.
Yeah, having that siloed off is critically important, so that it's separate from the other work that you're doing. So there's no chance of it interfering if you're working as a sub or a prime on another contract, or you're working with other firms.
It's insured separately for technology services companies, so there's no crossover.
So, one of the things that we've been looking at, of course, with our technology committee, doing a lot of work with, AI, we're looking at digital delivery, we're looking at the fact that more firms than ever are putting their information up on cloud services, or what are some of the biggest pressing issues facing the AEC industry when it comes to cybersecurity and data management?
Okay. Yeah, so that's a pretty hefty question.
It is.
We'll go for a little bit on that, I guess. But what we see, our experience is that there's a tremendous amount of interest and discussion around digital transformation, and of course AI has hit the scene in a huge way since coming up on 2 years now, November 22, when OpenAI released ChatGPT. That kind of ignited a fire under large language models, and really exciting stuff. But in order to truly take advantage of those new emergent technologies, companies' enterprise IT infrastructure has to be very well situated. And what we see in many instances is that firms are not there yet. So there's a focus on infrastructure needed, specifically data, but a lot of different things. And we find ourselves focusing there first, and then making the transition to some digital transformation projects. And cyber, unfortunately, continues to be a big deal. It's been a big deal for a decade plus, and there's no letting up. Actually, AI, the bad guys are using that as well to strengthen their attack vectors, and the good guys are using it to increasingly detect invasions quickly. But it's a pretty scary world out there. If you're not situated properly with cyber, there's some huge business risks.
Absolutely. It's not only where you house your data, but the controls that you have around the data.
Yes.
Walter P. Moore is an international company, so it's a question of how's that data handled if you're going outside the country, and
Yep.
Sure.
There are many issues associated with that, and it's almost like a commonplace now that on every proposal we would get for a project, there's now a section that deals with data and how that's protected and how that's secured, even for projects that are solely based in the U.S. But it is a requirement since companies are using different cloud service providers, and that data is stored in multiple locations. So one of the things you need to watch out for is ensure that the data is resident in the U.S. if you're largely working for projects where the U.S. Residency is going to be a requirement.
Yeah.
We see that transition to cloud with data as still a big deal. Many companies still have their data assets locally hosted, and there's a great interest in moving away from local office file servers and such onto a much more performant, resilient cloud structure. So a lot of companies that we're working with, a lot of our clients, are dealing with that issue. How do we transform to the cloud?
Yeah. When you look at going into a client for an assessment or an audit, how do you approach that?
So we do an IT assessment, top to bottom, looking at enterprise IT architecture, but also how technology is supporting the business, its objectives, growth objectives, and we do a thorough inventory, I guess you'd say, of all of the IT assets, and we interview a number of individuals, certainly people in the IT team, but we also focus on the C-suite, on operations managers, because we need to get a sense of what is working well with technology and where there might be some lacking. And when we conduct our findings, and what we present out is a report containing tactical and strategic recommendations based on what we found, and it's kind of like prioritize. So we're essentially saying if we were you, these are the things that we would consider doing in this order. And it's been very successful in terms of us being able to work very collaboratively with companies, even with their technology crews. So.
But it's not just the assessments that you guys do. You also do software development.
Maybe I'll comment on our service line.
Exactly. Because it seems like a full service.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is, 5 verticals is the way we talk about it. There's managed IT services, and that service line is really where we will do everything from becoming your full IT service provider. And we've got several clients where we're actually providing their IT services. We can do a piece of that, a part of it, maybe staff augmentation or project management for critical projects that companies just don't have the bandwidth or the necessary expertise for. So it can range from full service to pieces on the IT side. Consulting, I briefly mentioned. We kind of do that as the first step while we're pursuing MSP, is to just do a review of the architecture. Then we have cyber practice. Cyber assessments. We also do pen testing, vulnerability and scans, and we're really big on next generation endpoint detection and response and MDR. Actually, we're a reseller for one of the next gen EDR and MDR products. So we can do a comprehensive analysis of cyber, and we have a software development vertical that's very experienced in terms of web development, data integration, and also now AI. So we're moving into the AI space. And what we're finding, the way I think a company's technology demographics, I think of it in back of house and front of house.
Yeah.
So the back of house is the enterprise IT architecture, top to bottom, that's needed to support these new technologies. And the front of house are specific applications that would enable digital transformation. And I know that there's a lot of desire to do the latter, do the front of house first, but if you don't have the back of house right, it's going to be tough. Yeah.
So you'll go into a firm and you'll say, okay, well, once the back of house is in order, you'll help them develop a tool to implement
Yes.
AI or something
Right.
like that within the firm. So really take a look at discovery phase, figure exactly what they
Correct.
need, and then actually create a bespoke piece of software.
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be bespoke, although it can be. But even commercially available applications, we're helping. There are two case studies I can think about where we've gone in. We're actually the MSP for the client, so we know their architecture. Back of house is in good shape. Now we're helping them introduce Microsoft Copilot, which is
Okay.
Office 365
Yeah.
Gen AI assistant. And there's a very structured approach to doing that, and there's a lot of back end work, health check work, you need to do on the data environment to make sure when you turn these bots loose in your environment that when people are asking a prompt like we all do from ChatGPT, when you start doing those prompts on your company's data, you want to make sure that the answers that are returned are not
Open source or
yeah, right. That the person who's making the prompt is really permission to see the answers that are being developed. A critically important step, but
yeah.
so
Because right now, I mean, AI is only as smart as the information it accesses to analyze. So it has to
Yes.
analyze that data set within the company and not go out or
Yeah.
keep that data set within the company so that someone else can't, you know.
we think you need a human expert. AI is a fantastic tool set, but it currently it really needs we say human supervision.
Yeah.
So the partnership of an engineer, let's say, with AI capability is much more powerful than just the engineer themselves, and it's certainly much more powerful and safer than just AI itself at this point.
Yeah, looking at from your experience working with clients on these issues, both implementation and then also just trying to get a handle on AI, how do you think that's going to change the engineering firm in the future as far as it being people centric? Because you're going to need people who are more data software driven.
I think it's truly going to be transformational, and so it's so important that companies don't disregard, they don't ignore things like AI now. There's a big hype. It takes me back to the 2001, 2002 timeframe when data-centric design, 3D digital design, was just making its way into AEC. It had been in industrial, it had been in shipbuilding and aeronautical. Beginning of 2000, it started to creep into AEC, and there were many firms that were going to take a wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
And there are firms still today, some 24 years later, that haven't crossed that chasm. And I think that there will be a temptation perhaps to do the same for some companies on the AI front, but it's really important to dig in the right kind of way.
Yeah.
We've developed a roadmap for safely implementing AI in companies. A key consideration is focusing on the use case.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that can be done. It's critically important.
Yeah, it's almost like you're going into pretty much a sandbox. You have this technology. There's a speed of adoption. People want to take advantage of it. They see their competitors doing it. But without a clear-cut strategic use case, you can end up getting yourself in trouble especially if you start investing a lot of money without a clear, defined outcome.
Yes.
How, in general, how read up? I mean, if you would, how is the AEC industry doing compared to some, in your mind, others as far as our literacy on AI?
I think it's better. I don't think the AEC in general has elevated itself to the lead adopter of emergent technologies, but I think since we went through the transformation from drawing-centric to data-centric design with BIM, the industry has got a taste of exactly how far technology enablement can take you. So I think it's getting better. But there's still going to be laggards, and that's probably expected. It's going to be an expected result. But governance of initiatives within a company is really important. We've got a governance committee set up, and we help our clients do that so that people, you get the right balance between experimentation and heavy investment in an AI-based use case. But to be honest with you, Jeff, I mean, today, some AI components, like I think of the example of Microsoft Copilot as a Gen AI assistant that operates in the data in your environment, and it's safe. It doesn't exfiltrate to third-party large language model providers. That is such an incredible force multiplier. And the cost is, $30 or so per month per user. And when you actually start using some of these tools and see the efficiency boost you can get, it becomes clear that it doesn't take much to offset $30 a month. So I think that that's going to help uptake in the industry.
Yeah, it's one of those technologies where the barrier to entry is pretty low.
Very low, exactly right.
So hopefully smaller firms, I mean, it's always that push-pull between the large guys and the small guys, and it's a question of, it doesn't take a lot to get to at least dip your foot into the pond and start getting used to it. So really for the smaller firms, the your mom and pops or your small staff, you can test these things out because it's built in with like Microsoft, but you just have to be smart in the way that you go about that.
I think some professional guidance is helpful even for the mom and pop shops because of the data estate in these firms and what is your data estate like and how is it permissioned, because you don't want to be oversharing information with people that they shouldn't, they're not permissioned to see.
And you want to make sure that your data is good to begin with, because the output on AI is only as good as the input.
Yeah, there's that hallucination factor that happens, from time to time. But the way we think about AI in terms of, and I'm using this term force multiplier, it doesn't give you the final answer, but it provides a very rapid starting off place, a jumping off place. So if you're doing proposals, PowerPoint presentations, meeting transcription, meeting minutes, action items, recap, and on Teams, for example, that's very simple to do, and it's probably one of the best use cases we've seen so far for Copilot.
It's a big efficiency tool. It cuts out a lot of the work that otherwise would take you away from doing the actual project work.
I've just been amazed at some of the things that it generates, and you sit back and think, well, I could have done that too, but it would take me a lot longer than just entering a prompt.
That's what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm taking things that are almost done and saying, you know what, let me just check it, and so it's like, polish this up a little bit, or streamline this text, or what have you, and it does save time on drafting, redrafting, or all these little administrative tasks that used to just take time out of the day. You can now kind of automate them to an extent if you're using the tool correctly.
And you've got, the AI systems have a better handle on the data that they're permissioned to see. So you get a more inclusive view of the answer to your query. I think that's one of the really cool things that we've seen is when it's in your 365 environment, it has access to everything in your 365 environment. So you ask a question, and the answers that'll be provided can contain information you wouldn't even know existed.
Exactly.
So that's very helpful.
Let's talk about another service that you provide, which is an immersive VR review.
Yes.
Explain that a little bit. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So I think a little bit before 2017, we started to experiment with virtual reality, which was coming on scene for the AEC space. And at that time, it was an entirely different platform. It was gaming engine, Unity or Unreal as the primary gaming engines. And the immersive environment was, you put on the goggles and you could walk around in world, so to speak, experience the facility, and it's phenomenal. You can't. I found it almost impossible to describe to someone who hasn't been in an immersive environment what that is like. But it's truly unique. Unfortunately, that immersiveness requires almost like a theater setup. Sensors in the room. And when COVID came on scene in 2020, and all the offices shut everywhere, and everyone went home. Trying to get an immersive experience was, you couldn't do it. So we pivoted to a desktop version, which has been very successful. And one of the key features of that is it's multiplayer. So when you think about games, multiplayer games, well, we can do that now for project review, and you can see your project, but stakeholders anywhere can participate.
Is it platform agnostic, or is it tied to one, like the Meta or anything? Is it?
No, it's well, if you're going to take Meta, if you're going to go immersive in a goggle, then yes, we use currently HTC Vive is our platform. Could be expanded, but I think really after comparing the immersive and the desktop version, specifically for point solutions in project review, where you want your team members that are in 10 different cities across the world to participate in a review, use the tool set to collect comments, and it's phenomenal, phenomenally productive. And so we're kind of seeing a lot more use there than we are in the immersive space.
Okay.
Still using the same gaming engines to produce it.
Well, I mean, Unreal is it's a strong engine for graphics. I mean, it's amazing what they can do now with each iterative update of the Unreal Engine. It seems as though it's gone from games to now virtual environments, and seeing that run at like full frame rate is just it's practically like a one for one with the world around us.
It's pretty phenomenal. It may, and I probably shouldn't say this, but it makes doing project reviews almost like playing video games.
Yeah.
But it's pretty phenomenal, and we have a plug-in for Revit that we built that lets designers or engineers just hit the plug-in, and it assembles all of the Revit models that are linked and does a VR build, and then spits it out in a portal. So
what's the render time on something like that?
To get to the VR build, it really depends on the size of the model. It could be a few hours if it's huge. And of course, one of the common points in AEC industry is we tend to deal with big structures, big facilities.
Not small files, not small things to render.
So that was a challenge initially in working with the mesh, taking like Revit models as the design source and tessellating the members and getting the mesh optimized so you could go into engine like Unreal or Unity and the experience would be performant. And I think our team has done a great job at doing that.
It's just amazing when you think about all the back end technology that has to support that. I mean, not only the processing power, but then also just the network speeds to be able to do that internationally.
And the disciplined talent. This is something that I think the AEC companies need to pay attention to. It's that the traditional skill sets are still necessary, but I recall 7-8 years ago when we hired our first gamer because we were pursuing this VR project, and a lot of raised eyebrows is what is an engineering company doing hiring a gamer? And then more recently, it's data scientists, and so we've onboarded that skill set to quickly bring some competence into AI development initiatives.
Yeah, it seems like you're right. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in, especially with Firm of the Future. It's just the mix of professionals that are going to be in an engineering firm, because you're going to have your licensed Ps who are doing the work, doing the design work, signing the plans. But then there's an entire other side of the house, which is the dealing with the data, manipulating it, either VR or securing it,
or having the data science discipline knowledge. And we found that upskilling existing employees is really important, but so is onboarding bona fide data scientists who spent their career studying that. And you get the right mix with a subject matter, the best solution is a subject matter expert, let's say a structural engineer, who also has strong data science passion or skills, because they understand the operational business issue, and they also understand how to go from there to a machine learning model to help.
That's for anybody out there who's a kid thinking about going into engineering, maybe a minor in computer science is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think I have experience with some universities, and I can tell you that talking about the venerable profession of civil engineering, which I am one, there's a real competition at a lot of universities days and trying to get enrollment in CE programs because the computer science programs are taking all of the interest.
We kind of covered a lot of this, but I mean, with all these services that WPM Technology is offering its clients, the one thing you notice, especially in Northern Virginia, which is, there are so many different IT or cyber companies that try to get work with the federal government, and the industry is very competitive. So how do you set yourself apart in the marketplace that's really crowded?
Yes, and when you think about some of the service lines we offer, like managed service providers, IT consultants, there are many, many players. But what differentiates us is our specific AEC experience skills. So when we come into a company as a client, we have yet to encounter one that has a technology stack that is different from what we're used to.
Yeah.
So we kind of encompass the back of house from the core IT infrastructure discipline, as well as subject matter expertise with specific technology stacks and challenges that AEC companies are working with. If you've got several offices, you're working a project where many people from different offices are participating, it's critically important to know how to manage the data flows and what technology solutions really work for doing that. So it's really our AEC experience, the combo, AEC experience plus deep IT experience, we think is a differentiator.
Throughout the industry, it's you're a CIO at a large engineering firm, but there aren't many other CIOs in the industry or chief information security officers that work in hand with the CIO. Do you think that's changing? I mean, you think that firms are starting to realize, what, we need to flesh out our C-suite when it comes to technology?
I think to a certain extent, yes. Budget and affordability, especially for the smaller firms, plays a big issue in that. So one of the service offerings that WPM Tech has is virtual CIO advisor.
Okay.
So we can fulfill that role from a strategic visioning perspective for the C-suite of a company, as well as make recommendations on what systems they should be moving to, etc. So by using that service, a firm gets access not only to CIO level strategic thinking, but also a deep bench of competent IT professionals. And you need to be a certain size company before you can really afford to onboard all that. So I think going forward in the future, we may see more need for that virtual CIO because the tech is getting a lot more complex. It's not just about installing CAD systems anymore. It goes much deeper than that. Yeah,
absolutely. It seems like it's a new marketplace. It's interesting because I remember a FIDIC meeting I went to when I first came on to AEC, and there's somebody who was doing a presentation on technology. It was before the flood of OpenAI, before everything really hit. They said, if you don't think you're a tech company yet,
that's right,
wake up and realize that you are a tech company.
Yes.
And there's murmurs in the audience, people kind of agreeing, saying, yeah, okay, I can see that. Or people, kind of disagreeing, but I don't think it's a question anymore. If you're an engineering firm, you're a tech company.
I 200% agree with you. I think that's companies are finding that out, and they're going to have to figure out a way to maneuver that landscape.
Yeah,
and we can help do it.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I mean, that's great. So, if there's anybody out there who's saying, you know what, we need to get support from WPM Technology, who, how should they reach out to?
Well, what I would suggest is that they visit our website, which is WPMtechnology.com, and there are our contact forms there, and we'd love to have an informal conversation about services, capabilities, and talk to anyone who might be interested.
Fantastic.
So,
Wonderful. Well, Jim, thanks for taking the time.
thank you, sir.
I really appreciate it, and hope to have you back on, because this is not an issue that's going away. It's just going to get more complicated.
It's going to be with us for a while.
I know it is, and fall conference is coming up. We're going to have a great presentation, a keynote speaker on AI, who's an engineer also, and actually has worked on both sides, helped in the development with Microsoft and Google on their platforms.
Excellent.
But then also is on the business side and understands the implementation case.
Excellent.
So that's going to be great. So again, if you haven't scheduled or reserved for fall conference, do so. But again, this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we'll see you next time.